The alien female lay hidden beneath the twisted roots of a giant tree, her body trembling from pain and exhaustion. Her small, delicate frame was covered in bruises and scratches, each one a reminder of how she had been left behind. She had been abandoned not by accident, but by those she had trusted the most, her own people. The memory of the day she was left alone haunted her. She could still see the bright ships disappearing into the sky, the figures of her companions turning away, leaving her behind. Fear had gripped her then, and it never truly left. The land around her was harsh and unwelcoming. Sharp rocks jutted from the ground, and strange, dark plants grew in tangled masses that threatened to trip her with every step. The air smelled, sharp and metallic, mixed with the faint scent of decay. She had learned quickly that every sound could signal danger. A rustle in the bushes could mean a predator was near. The wind could carry scents of something she could not yet see but might hurt her. Hunger gnawed at her stomach constantly, and thirst burned her throat. Yet she dared not leave the safety of her hiding spot. Every day was a battle. Some days, she could not move for hours because the pain in her legs was too great. She remembered how she had tried to keep up with her people, how she had run through dangerous terrain to escape the enemy that had attacked them. Her legs had given out. Her body had failed her, and that was when they had left. Now, crawling slowly and hiding carefully was the only way she could survive. Every time she tried to move, her vision blurred from pain and exhaustion, but she forced herself forward. Survival was all she had left. Nights were the hardest. The darkness brought sounds she could not always identify. Strange cries echoed across the land, some of them hauntingly familiar, others completely alien. Each noise made her heart race. Sometimes she imagined that her people had returned to find her, but the silence that followed always crushed any hope. She would pull her thin cloak tighter around her body, shivering not only from cold, but from the ache in her chest. Tears often filled her eyes, but she wiped them away quickly. She could not afford to cry for long. Vulnerability could invite danger. Despite the fear, she was clever. She had watched the creatures that roamed the land, learning their habits and avoiding them whenever possible. She had discovered a small stream where she could drink, though the water was cold and bitter. She scavenged for roots and berries, picking the ones that seemed safest. Her hands were raw from climbing and digging, but she did not complain. She remembered her people's lessons about patience and observation. Even though they had abandoned her, their teachings still helped her survive. Every small success, a meal found, a safe place to sleep, was a victory in a life that had become nothing but struggle. The emotional pain was as sharp as her physical wounds. She remembered the laughter she had shared with her companions, the warmth of their presence, and the safety she had once felt. Those memories were like both a comfort and a torment. She longed for connection, for someone to be there with her. Yet every day reminded her that she was truly alone. In the quiet moments, she would whisper the names of those who had left her, as if speaking to them might bring them back. But the wind always carried her words away, leaving only silence in return. One morning, after a night of restless sleep, she ventured further than usual, drawn by the hope of finding something that could help her survive. Her legs ached, and her vision blurred, but determination burned in her eyes. She moved slowly, testing each step, making sure the ground was stable and free of threats. Her body was weak, but her mind was alert. Every sound, every shadow, every change in the wind was a signal to her. She had learned to trust her instincts because mistakes could cost her life. She found a small clearing surrounded by trees, the sunlight breaking through in thin beams. For a moment, she allowed herself to enjoy the warmth, letting the light touch her bruised face and sore limbs. She could feel life stirring in her body again, a fragile sense of hope that maybe she could keep going. But her joy was short-lived. From the edge of the clearing, she heard a low growl. Her body froze. A predator had noticed her presence. Heart pounding, she ducked behind a rock and held her breath, praying it had not seen her clearly. The creature circled, sniffing the air, its growl growing louder. Her mind raced, thinking of ways to escape. Time seemed to stretch endlessly. She remembered the stories her people had told about surviving the wild, about using cleverness instead of strength. Slowly, she inched backward, inch by inch, trying to remain unseen. The predator's eyes glinted in the sunlight as it moved, searching. Finally, after what felt like hours, it lost interest and wandered away. She did not relax immediately, knowing that danger could return at any moment. Her body shook with relief, but also with the lingering fear that this life of constant struggle would never end. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of red and orange, she found a small cave tucked into the side of a hill. It was not much, but it offered shelter. She crawled inside and curled up, pressing her arms against her body to keep warm. Her mind wandered again to thoughts of her people, to questions that had no answers. Why had they left her? Was she not worthy of their protection? The questions tormented her, but she forced herself to focus on survival. Night had fallen and the sounds of the wild surrounded her, yet she felt a tiny spark of hope. Even in the darkest moments, she knew she could not give up. Her spirit, though battered, had not been broken. Somewhere, deep inside, a part of her still believed that help could come. She did not know who might find her or when, but she held on to the thought like a lifeline. She had survived against all odds so far. Perhaps, just perhaps, survival could lead to something more. For now she would rest, heal as best as she could, and prepare for the next day. She was wounded, she was alone, but she was still alive, and that was the first step toward hope. The human had been traveling for days through the same harsh land where the alien female struggled to survive. He was an explorer by training, someone who had faced danger before, but never expected to find anything like this. His mission had been simple at first: survey the area, document wildlife, and gather data about the land. Yet from the moment he stepped into this territory, he sensed that it was different. The air was heavy, filled with unfamiliar smells and sounds, and the ground was uneven, making every step a challenge. He noticed signs that something, or someone, had passed through before him. The footprints were unlike any animal he had seen, too small to belong to the large predators that roamed the area, but too precise to be random. Pieces of torn fabric clung to thorny bushes, and faint traces of blood marked the soil. A knot of unease settled in his stomach, but he pushed forward. He had a careful nature, one that served him well in dangerous situations. He knew that curiosity could be as powerful as caution, and in this moment it drove him to follow the trail. The alien female watched him from a distance, hiding behind thick branches. She had never seen a human before, and instinct made her wary. Her body was still weak from her injuries, and trust did not come easily after being abandoned by her own kind. She held her breath every time he drew closer, every time his shadow passed over the rocks where she lay. She wanted to flee, but she knew she could not outrun him if he discovered her. Every muscle in her body tensed as she weighed her options, her mind racing through possibilities. The human paused, noticing the subtle signs of life. He crouched low, scanning the area carefully. His eyes were trained to observe details others might miss. He saw the faint movement behind a bush, the slight tremor that betrayed her presence. For a moment he thought it might be an animal, but then he noticed the small, delicate form hiding beneath the branches. She looked fragile, wounded, and terrified. His heart tightened at the sight, but he knew he had to approach slowly. Sudden movements could frighten her or make her run, and she might be too weak to escape. He spoke softly in a gentle voice that carried across the clearing but did not startle her. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said. "I just want to help." The alien female tilted her head, unsure if she could trust the sound. She had heard words before, promises that had been broken. She stayed low, barely breathing, watching him closely. Her instincts told her that this human might be different, yet fear anchored her to the ground. The human moved with care, placing his bag on the ground and kneeling. He kept his hands visible, showing no weapon, no threat. Slowly, he took out a small water container and placed it on the ground a few feet away, hoping to show that he came in peace. He spoke again, his voice calm and steady. You must be tired. I can help you get water, get food, and maybe even heal your injuries." The alien female's eyes widened. She had not expected someone to show concern for her well-being. The concept of kindness felt foreign, yet something in his tone stirred a small glimmer of trust. Hours passed as he watched her from a distance. He did not force her to move or respond. Instead, he waited, giving her space while maintaining a steady presence. He spoke occasionally, softly describing what he was doing and why, so she could understand he meant no harm. Slowly, she inched closer, driven by the hunger in her stomach and the need for water. She remained cautious, her body tense, ready to flee at the first sign of danger. When she finally reached the water container, the human smiled gently and stepped back, giving her room. She drank quickly, the cold liquid soothing her parched throat. Her hands shook and she looked up at him, assessing his reaction. He nodded encouragingly, never pushing her, never showing impatience. Over the next few hours, he offered small amounts of food, each piece carefully placed so she could take it without feeling threatened. Gradually, she began to trust that he would not harm her, that he was not like those who had left her behind. The human noticed her injuries and the way she moved with difficulty. Her leg was clearly damaged and her arm bore deep scratches. He knew she could not survive alone for long in this environment without treatment. Using simple gestures, he tried to communicate that he wanted to help her. He carefully examined her wounds, speaking softly all the while explaining each movement. She flinched at first, but slowly allowed him to touch her, trusting him just enough to let him clean the cuts and apply basic treatments. The alien female's curiosity grew as she observed him. She had never seen someone take such care, never experienced a presence that was patient, gentle, and entirely focused on helping. She began to ask small questions, not with words but with gestures and expressions. The human responded with smiles, nods, and simple explanations. Communication was slow, but a connection was forming. The walls she had built around herself were starting to crack, replaced by a fragile sense of hope. As the day turned to evening, the human set up a small shelter for them both, using materials from his supplies and the surrounding environment. It was simple but safe, a place where she could rest without fear of immediate danger. He offered her a blanket and gestured for her to lie down. She hesitated, then accepted, curling up carefully. For the first time in many days, she felt some sense of security. She was still weak, still cautious, but the human's presence made the night feel less frightening. Throughout the night, he remained nearby, not imposing, but ready to assist if needed. He spoke softly at intervals, telling her about the land, the stars above, and small stories of his own life. She listened, absorbing the sound of his voice, finding comfort in its steadiness. Though she did not speak the same language, she began to understand the intent behind his words: kindness, patience, and a desire to protect. By the time dawn arrived, the alien female had taken her first real rest in days. She felt stronger, both in body and spirit. The human had proven that she could trust him, that not all beings were like those who had abandoned her. She still did not fully understand why he had come, why he cared, but she accepted that for now, it did not matter. Survival depended on trust, and she had chosen to trust him. For the first time since her abandonment, she allowed herself to imagine the possibility of safety, companionship, and a chance to heal. She knew the journey ahead would not be easy. She still had wounds to mend, dangers to face, and trust to build further. Yet, in this human, she had found hope. A reason to keep moving forward, to fight for life even in a world that had been cruel and unyielding. Days passed and the alien female began to feel the slow return of strength in her body. The human had been patient and careful, giving her time to heal without pressure. Each day, he checked her injuries, cleaned the scratches, and applied natural remedies he carried with him. Though she could not speak his language fully, she understood his gestures and the tone of his voice. Slowly, she started to trust him more, realizing that he would not leave her, would not harm her, and wanted only To help. She began to move a little more confidently, testing her injured leg and arm. The pain was still there, a sharp reminder of how fragile her body had become, but it was no longer unbearable. The human noticed every small improvement, encouraging her quietly with smiles and nods. He even made simple tools to help her move around safely, using sticks and vines to create support. Each time she used them successfully, a small spark of pride and hope flickered inside her. She was beginning to believe that she could survive again, not just exist, but live. The bond between them grew stronger with each passing day. At first, it had been a cautious alliance. She needed his help, and he wanted to ensure her survival. But over time, they began to share moments that were not just about survival. The alien female would sit quietly nearby as he prepared meals or arranged the shelter. She would watch him carefully, noticing small details in his movements, learning to understand his intentions and emotions. He in turn seemed fascinated by her presence, by the way she observed the world with alert eyes and graceful movements despite her injuries. Communication became a kind of silent dance. She learned to understand some of his words and gestures, while he observed her expressions and body language to understand her feelings. When she flinched at sudden noises, he would reassure her with a soft word and a gentle hand gesture. When she looked unsure or hesitant, he would pause and give her time, never forcing her to act before she was ready. Each small interaction built trust, and slowly, she began to relax in his presence. Hunger and thirst were no longer constant fears, but survival still required effort. Together, they searched for food and water. The alien female learned quickly, picking roots, berries, and edible plants with guidance from the human. He showed her which plants were safe, how to find water in hidden streams, and how to avoid dangers. She was amazed at his knowledge and careful methods, realizing that he was not just strong but wise in ways she had never experienced before. She began to appreciate the partnership that had formed between them, a bond built on care, respect, and understanding. Emotionally, she began to heal as well. She shared glimpses of her past with him, not in words but in small signs and gestures. Sometimes she would trace shapes in the dirt or point to scratches and scars on her body, hinting at the struggles she had faced. The human responded with patience, listening as best he could, offering comfort with his presence and his calm demeanor. Slowly, she allowed herself to feel emotions she had buried: hope, curiosity, and even a cautious joy. She realized that someone could care for her without expecting anything in return, and this realization gave her strength she had not known she still possessed. One afternoon, while sitting near the small stream, the alien female tested her limits. She stepped into the shallow water, feeling the cool liquid touch her sore feet. The human watched closely but did not interfere unless necessary, allowing her to regain confidence in her own abilities. She splashed gently, laughed quietly at the sensation, and for the first time in many days felt a small sense of freedom. It was a moment of pure, simple happiness, something she had almost forgotten existed. The human noticed the change in her demeanor and smiled softly. He could see that she was no longer just surviving. She was beginning to thrive, to reconnect with life despite all she had endured. He also realized that his role had shifted. He was no longer just a rescuer. He had become a companion, someone who shared the burden of survival and offered understanding without judgment. Their bond was no longer fragile. It was strengthening with every day spent together, every shared experience, every small victory over the hardships of the land. At night, they would sit together under the stars. The alien female watched him as he traced constellations she did not know, explaining their meanings through gestures and simple words. She listened, fascinated, and tried to mimic the sounds he made. Laughter and smiles became more common, replacing some of the fear and sorrow that had dominated her life. She began to look forward to these moments, realizing that companionship could bring comfort and even joy, something she had once thought impossible. Trust deepened further when danger returned. A large predator approached their shelter one evening, drawn by the smell of food. The alien female froze, her instincts screaming to run, but the human acted quickly and decisively. He created a diversion, using fire and noise to scare the creature away. She watched in awe, not just at his courage but at his calmness under pressure. For the first time, she felt that she could rely on someone other than herself, someone who would protect her without question. The incident also taught her that she had learned valuable skills from him. She could help, she could act, and she could contribute to their survival together. By the end of this part of their journey, the alien female had changed in ways she could not have imagined. She was stronger, not just in body but in spirit. She had discovered that trust could be rebuilt, that connection could heal wounds deeper than those on the skin. The human had shown her kindness, patience, and courage, and in return she began to open her heart in small ways, sharing pieces of herself she had hidden for so long. Their days together became a rhythm of learning, survival, and growing companionship. Each morning brought new challenges, each night a chance to rest and reflect. They had become a team, relying on each other for strength, guidance, and comfort. The alien female realized that she no longer feared being alone. She had found someone she could trust completely, someone who valued her life and presence. In a world that had been cruel and unforgiving, this bond was a light, a reason to hope, to keep moving forward, and to believe that even the deepest wounds could begin to heal. The days of quiet survival did not last long. As the alien female grew stronger, the land around them became even more unpredictable and dangerous. Predators roamed closer to their shelter, and the terrain became harsher, filled with jagged rocks, deep ravines, and thick vegetation. Both she and the human had to stay alert at all times. The alien female had learned many lessons from her rescuer, but now she had to apply them in moments of real danger. Their bond, built on trust and patience, would be tested like never before. One afternoon, while foraging for food, they heard a low, guttural growl echo through the trees. The alien female froze instantly, her instincts screaming to hide. She recognized the sound as one of the more aggressive predators in the region, strong, fast, and extremely dangerous. The human held up a hand, signaling her to stay calm. She hesitated, trembling, but something in his calm eyes reassured her. She realized that she could not run blindly. Together, they needed a plan. The human whispered instructions, pointing to a nearby ravine and demonstrating with gestures how they could move without being noticed. The alien female watched carefully, noting every detail. Her legs were still not fully healed, but she moved as quietly and carefully as possible, mimicking the human's movements. For the first time, she felt a surge of confidence. She understood that survival was not just about fear. It was about intelligence, observation, and teamwork. As they made their way across the uneven terrain, the predator appeared. Its eyes glinted in the sunlight and its growl grew louder. The alien female's heart raced, but she followed the human's lead, moving swiftly and silently. He carried a small makeshift weapon, something to fend off the creature if necessary, but he remained focused on guiding her to safety first. Step by step, they moved closer to the ravine's edge, where they could hide among rocks and shadows. The predator lunged, suddenly testing their movements. The alien female froze for a moment, fear gripping her, but the human grabbed her arm gently, pulling her out of the way just in time. Her eyes met his, filled with a mixture of terror and awe. He nodded reassuringly, and she realized that together they could face challenges she never could have survived alone. This was a turning point. She understood that she had learned not only to trust him, but also to trust herself. She had grown stronger, braver, and more capable because of him. After the immediate danger passed, they continued moving cautiously, relying on each other's skills. The alien female noticed small details she had missed before: the direction of the wind, the patterns in the predator's movement, and the sounds of smaller creatures that indicated safety or danger. She began to contribute actively to their survival, suggesting paths, spotting signs, and helping set up temporary shelters along the way. The human observed her with quiet pride. She was no longer just the one being protected. She was his partner in survival, and her instincts were becoming sharper each day. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, they reached a small, secluded valley. It was a place of relative safety, surrounded by high rocks that blocked most predators. Here they could rest and plan for the coming days. The alien female tended to her wounds, cleaning them carefully while the human prepared food. She watched him with gratitude and growing admiration. His calmness, patience, and courage had taught her lessons she could not have learned alone. She realized that their bond was more than trust. It was mutual respect, a partnership forged through hardship and shared challenges. The following morning, the dangers returned in a new form. A group of wild predators entered the valley, more organized and aggressive than the lone creature they had faced before. The alien female's heart pounded, but she did not panic. She had learned from the human how to observe, plan, and act strategically. Together, they set up a defensive position, using rocks, sticks, and other natural barriers. She watched him, mimicking his actions, and felt a sense of pride as she realized she could make a real difference in their survival. The confrontation was tense. The predators tested their defenses, circling, growling, and striking when possible. But the alien female and the human worked seamlessly together. He directed her movements with gestures, and she responded quickly, blocking paths, signaling danger, and helping to guide the predators away from their shelter. Each successful maneuver strengthened her confidence and deepened the trust between them. She realized that she was no longer helpless. She had learned skills, gained courage, and could now protect herself and those she cared about. Through this experience, the alien female began to see humans in a new light. Before, she had been abandoned by her own kind, left to fend for herself. She had believed that no one could be trusted. But now, seeing the humans' bravery, patience, and selflessness, she understood that some humans were capable of deep kindness and loyalty. This realization filled her with hope and reshaped her understanding of the world. She realized that even in the harshest environments, companionship and trust could survive and thrive. After the predators finally left, exhausted or deterred, they assessed the damage and tended to minor injuries. The alien female's movements were steadier, more confident. She had learned to anticipate danger, act decisively, and rely on her own instincts while still cooperating with the human. They shared a quiet moment, sitting side by side, acknowledging without words the bond that had formed through shared danger. It was a bond stronger than fear, built on respect, trust, and mutual reliance. In the following days, they continued to navigate the treacherous land together, facing natural hazards, finding food, and avoiding predators. Each challenge strengthened their connection. The alien female learned to speak a few simple words the human could understand, while he learned to interpret her gestures and expressions. Communication, though limited, became more effective, allowing them to coordinate better and survive more efficiently. She realized that survival was no longer just about hiding or fleeing. It was about teamwork, intelligence, and courage. By the end of this part of their journey, the alien female had transformed. She was physically stronger, emotionally resilient, and mentally sharp. She had faced real danger alongside the human, contributed to their safety, and learned to trust and act decisively. More importantly, she had begun to understand the true meaning of partnership, compassion, and loyalty. She no longer saw humans as a threat. She saw them as capable of friendship and protection. The bond they had forged was now unbreakable, a testament to the power of trust, courage, and shared experience in the face of adversity. The alien female and the human had faced countless dangers together, and through every challenge their bond had grown stronger. Now, as the sun rose over the distant hills, the alien female felt something she had not felt in a long time: hope. The harshness of the land still surrounded them, but it no longer felt like a prison. She had survived. She had grown stronger, smarter, and braver. And most importantly, she was not alone. For the first time, she looked at the human not just as her rescuer, but as a friend, a companion, and an ally. He had taught her that kindness could exist even in the cruelest of worlds. He had shown patience when she was afraid, courage when danger appeared, and understanding when words failed. She realized that the world could be harsh, yes, but it could also be full of people willing to help, willing to care, and willing to fight alongside others. Their mornings now began with small routines, but each task was a shared effort. She gathered food while he prepared tools and shelter materials. Sometimes they traveled together to find safer places or better sources of water. Other times they simply rested, sitting quietly beside each other, letting the warmth of the sun fill their bodies and spirits. In these moments she felt peace. For the first time since her abandonment, she did not feel the constant gnawing fear that had haunted her every step. They encountered dangers, of course, but now they faced them together with confidence. Wild predators still lurked in the shadows, and treacherous terrain challenged their movements. But the alien female no longer froze in fear. She had learned to anticipate, to act quickly, and to trust her own instincts. The human's guidance remained invaluable, but now she contributed actively to every decision, helping to plan safe routes, avoid threats, and protect their small camp. The sense of teamwork that had begun weeks ago had matured into something strong and reliable. Over time, the alien female's curiosity about the human grew. She began to ask questions, through gestures, expressions, and small attempts at language. The human answered patiently, teaching her words she could understand and teaching her concepts about the world around them. She laughed at some of his explanations and made gestures to explain her own thoughts. Communication had become more than just survival. It was a bridge between two very different beings, a way to understand each other and share experiences. As the days passed, she noticed a change within herself that went deeper than physical recovery. The pain and loneliness that had defined her life for so long were beginning to fade. She realized that her past abandonment did not define her future. She could choose to live with hope, to embrace trust, and to welcome companionship. The human had shown her that even after betrayal, kindness could exist. He had given her the courage to believe in a future she had once thought impossible. One day, they discovered a small valley with a gentle river, abundant food, and natural shelter. It was a safe haven, protected from the harshest predators and the roughest weather. The alien female's eyes widened as she took in the beauty of the place. She had endured so much to survive, but now she had found a space where life could begin anew. She turned to the human, and though words were not necessary, gratitude shone in her eyes. He nodded gently, acknowledging that this was a turning point in their journey. They spent days making the valley their new home. They built a secure shelter, gathered supplies, and learned how to live in harmony with the land. The alien female felt a sense of purpose she had not known before. She was not just surviving, she was living. She explored the valley, learning its secrets, noticing the patterns of wildlife and discovering plants that could be used for food and medicine. With the human by her side, she realized that every day brought new possibilities and opportunities. Evenings became moments of reflection and connection. They would sit together, watching the sun set in brilliant colors across the sky. The alien female sometimes spoke softly, sharing memories of her past, her fears, and her hopes. The human listened attentively, responding with words, gestures, and gentle touches that reassured her. Each night she went to sleep feeling safe, cared for, and understood, a feeling she had not experienced in a long time. The alien female's trust in humans had been completely transformed. Where once she had feared betrayal and abandonment, she now recognized that loyalty and compassion were real. The human had not only saved her life physically, but had also restored her belief in connection and kindness. She understood that her journey of survival had led her to this new understanding. The world was not only dangerous, but it was also capable of generosity and friendship. One morning, as they sat by the river, the alien female reflected on her journey. She had been wounded and abandoned, left to fend for herself in a world that seemed determined to crush her. She had endured hunger, pain, fear, and loneliness. Yet through all of it she had survived, and she had grown. She looked at the human, realizing that his presence had changed everything. Because of him, she had learned to trust, to fight, to hope, and to live fully again. The human, too, had changed in this journey. He had entered the land as an observer, expecting to face challenges alone. Instead, he had discovered the strength of compassion, the power of patience, and the depth of courage found in another being. Their partnership had taught him as much as it had taught her. He had learned that helping someone was not just an act of kindness, but a shared journey that could transform both lives. As they prepared to settle in their new valley permanently, the alien female felt a sense of peace she had never known. The dangers of the past still existed, but they no longer controlled her life. She was no longer the frightened, abandoned being she had once been. She had emerged stronger, wiser, and braver. She had found companionship, trust, and hope. Most importantly, she had discovered that life, even after immense hardship, could offer new beginnings and happiness. In the quiet of the valley, with the river flowing gently and the sun casting warm light across the land, the alien female took a deep breath. She felt the strength in her body, the courage in her heart, and the warmth of trust beside her. The journey had been long, painful, and uncertain, but it had led to this moment, a moment of safety, hope, and the promise of a brighter future. She was no longer alone. She was no longer lost. She was alive, and she had found a place to truly belong. And so, from the wounds of abandonment and the trials of survival, a new chapter began, one of friendship, trust, and the endless possibilities that come when one is given the chance to heal and thrive. The alien female had faced the worst of the world and had emerged stronger than ever, with a companion who had shown her that even in the darkest times, light could be found, and hope could flourish.